For me, there are three things in this paper that I am really interested in and have really felt I've had to adapt my practice as a teacher. And the first one was quite an obvious one. We're pretty good at teachers and as great students of knowing it's going to take me 30 minutes to do the multiple choice and it's going to take me an hour to do the short answer and I'm going to have 20 minutes for my extended response. And this paper threw those metrics out, reading the multiple choice questions through the planets into a whole different solar system. And so my first take is we might need to just second guess a little bit more if we can prepare in such a structured way, or if we need to get back to maybe some of those early secondary years skills, which is all about, okay, if I'm going longer than X, time to move on. The second thing that was very obvious that I think has created a shift is it's so stimulus heavy. Interpret this graph, look at these results, look at this article, look at this scenario. Now, our composition of SACs has been changing over the last few years to tell teachers stimulus, 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 stimulus. In fact, there are rules written that say we have to look at stimulus that are new within the last 12 months. So I think that stimulus heavy interpretation, less question, more understanding the world is the second thing that I really sat up and noticed. The third thing, which I actually really adore about the exam, are the ability to draw connections between real world examples and different areas of the course. It's really tending to those students who can not just learn content, but put themselves in the why and the understanding. So, my three big takeaways after I went, ooh, wow, different, are look at how we use length or our time in an exam, practice using stimuli as often as possible, and also remember to put yourself and your learning in it. The first is that I think there is maybe we've got a bit complacent as students and teachers on fundamentals. Maybe when new content comes in, gut-brain axis and Indigenous ways of knowing, we all kind of swing our emphasis on things that are new parts of the brain that we've all had to sort of unpack with changing interpretations of their functions. Maybe we've all focused a lot on those big new things that are emerging research, because what the paper told us was that independent variables were done badly. What? Now, that's bread and butter. It tells us that things like the elements of observational learning were done badly. So what the paper actually probably said was people need to get back to some fundamentals and make sure that we are not swinging all of our attention on what's new and scary, but actually equally giving equal weight to some of those other areas. I think the other thing that I'm really curious about is that the absolute worst attempted questions were in those key science skills. These exams, VCE as a whole, but particularly when we come to key science skills across the science areas, they are looking to see how you think about the world. They are looking to see how you interpret the world. Sometimes there are multiple ways of interpreting it. Sometimes there are multiple ways of doing things. That's okay. You're using a body of evidence, a body of knowledge to be able to apply it to a scenario, put your shoulders back and say, here's my interpretation. What do you think? And if we can find a way to change that mindset as we go into exam, that's just so important. I have been doing so much stimulus creation using AI. And I'm just saying to AI, make me a correlation graph for the amount of sleep deprivation versus errors on a test. It spits me out something. It's not really labeled well. But I'm getting it and I'm able to just practice more. I think teachers and students stop worrying about great stimuli and start practicing more at 80% stimuli, because even data that we get that's not good gives us something to write on and critique. So this is where I really think using AI tools that can do a bit more of the, heavy lifting, and us Googling and searching and looking at past papers less, just to get into the groove and the practice.
As you said, it's that practice of doing it repeatedly throughout the years. As you said, there's a while to go, start getting into that rhythm now.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we have 10 minutes, I open to a page, we look at a dot point and we just write what we know on it. Let's just get really familiar with where are the dot points and what have I got in my brain, hopefully.
And you talked about, it's a great strategy as well, the underlining of keywords and connecting, because it really helps bring a visual, doesn't it?
It probably means you study with way too many resources and we're never actually practicing where did I file this information and how do I bring it back. So one of the first things you need to look at when you're learning and you're studying, typically learning is about the active encoding, how it goes in. Studying is usually about checking it's there, refining and fixing. We then have a third category called recalling, and that has its own technique too. I think that all effective study routines start with blank paper. We're so fixated on great resources, printing off last year's paper, looking at PowerPoint slides and notes. It's just stuff, guys. Start with a blank piece of paper. Get a VCE dot point, a VCard dot point, or a lesson planner, whatever it is that you're being given your content on, and say, what do I know on that topic? 5 minutes, right. Can you define it? Can you link it? Do you know where it is in a flowchart? What do you know about 5 minutes? The second part of a really effective study technique is that you have to then put yourself in the brain of a teacher. Predictive questioning. So if I've got some content, how could it be asked? Why did this occur? How are these two things similar? How do we know what we know? Where in the brain is it located? Who are the founding thought leaders in this area that led to this, political way of thinking? It doesn't matter what it is, but change gears and say what could be asked. Again, you don't need to be able to answer one of those questions, but you're starting to engage with your content at a level that up levels more than just remember, and starts to pose, how may this be asked? Now that generates a whole group of questions that you can start to play with as well. The third piece of that effective study technique is you're going to do some practice questions along the journey. Your job is actually not to answer the questions, it's to improve your answers every time you do it. I can't tell you the number of people that do paper on paper on paper, and students hand me 5 papers to mark, and I'm like, I'm not marking that. And they're like, why? And I said, because I haven't marked the first one to tell you what's wrong with it to fix in the second. So paper 2, 3, 4, and 5 are a waste of your time and mine. Do the paper, work out where you need to improve, fix your language, fix your detail, fix your examples, go again. And so these 3 steps of blank paper, predict and question, language refining, hits really different priorities in a study pattern, but actually allows everyone to be successful in growth and development, not just in knowledge.